Welcome to this episode of What's Arising. As part of my tradition so far, I ring my bowl 3 times and I invite you to just get settled with the bowl as I ring it. First time, get settled and connect with self, and then maybe the second time with other people in your life. Imagine reaching out and connecting with other people, humanity, and then maybe the third ring, just connecting with all that is, with life itself. But overall, just invite you to get very present, and I'll start this particular podcast on trust right after I ring the bells. So this episode on What's Arising is about trust. It's a very near and dear topic to me for many, many years. And I'll get into that in a moment. But the question that is here is, what can I trust, or what can we trust? Who can we trust? I don't know your experience of life, but it seems like trust in our society is waning or lost in many cases. When I grew up as a child, we didn't lock our doors. We pretty much trusted everyone. Now, maybe sometimes that was unfounded trust and people got into trouble, but for the most part, we trusted life, or we trusted the unfolding of life, or at least that was my experience here. And now we lock our doors. It seems like everything has the potential to betray us. We try, or maybe even need, to control almost everything in our life. There's things that are being censored now. There's fake news. Can we trust the news? Can we trust the alternative news? Can we trust other people? Can we trust our governments or institutions? Can we trust God? I think many people have felt betrayed by all of these things, felt deep inside, maybe unwilling to admit it, that the universe, God, source, has betrayed them, left them alone, and that life itself is one big betrayal. So what can we actually trust when this is our experience and we have these deep hurts, these traumas that says, hey, there's no reason to trust anything here? And what are the implications of that when we don't trust? You can see the implications of that, of course, everywhere. We have to have virus controls on our computer and anti-spam. We have to be very discerning or careful about who we open our door to. If we're watching the news, well, there's no trust out there in the world. There's no way you would trust the world if you looked at the mainstream news, that everything has gone to hell in that sense. And maybe you have deep anxiety as a symptom of not being able to trust, this crisis of trust. Maybe you're experiencing deeper levels of control. And when we can't trust people, when we can't trust the government, then we hunker down and try and implement more measures of control, whatever those are. And from the government side, surveillance and monitoring people, and totalitarianism starts to be a risk in our society as we move more and more to this place of not being able to trust anybody. But that's not the world that I want to live in. A world without trust is a world without connection, without love, often without kindness, except in certain small circles. So, what can we trust? Who can we trust? How can we come back to be a pure, trustful being? How can we change society and move it in another direction that is more trust-based, that our relationships are based on trust rather than a transaction? We're paid for this, therefore there's where the value is, not in the relationship. How do we move to a different society? I don't have all the answers to that. Maybe you have some answers and some queries into that. But I can tell you a little bit about my experience of trust and what I do and what my philosophy is on moving to trust, my experience. So, what can we trust? Many years ago, maybe about 20 some years ago, I was working with a healer, and one of the things she said to me is, Richard, you're here to learn how to trust the process of life, to trust life itself. That stuck with me, that question. How can I possibly trust life with everything? And since that time, I've had many broken hearts, betrayals in a sense. And yet, within those experiences, I've learned to come back to trust, to not close my heart. When we're in protection, it's because we don't trust. We close down ourselves. We shut the doors and windows, and we lock ourselves away, and we're not free because we can't trust anything. So let's put all these protections around us. But what if we could find ways to open up the doors again, open up our hearts and our minds, step out of our protection mechanisms, and step out into the world with more freedom? And from that place, what can we trust? Well, there's certain things about life we can trust. I can trust that I am going to die someday, that I'm getting older. I can look at my whiskers and see that I'm getting older, and I'll probably get older, and I'll if I continue to live, I will get wrinkly and incapacitated and eventually die. I can trust that. I can trust life in that I will die. I can trust many other aspects of life. I don't have to make something conform to my expectations. I can just accept some things as they are, and trust them as they are. I'm not likely, in this stage of my development, going to walk up to a bear and try to pet it, a wild bear. This just not within my capacity. I can trust that if I did that, especially a grizzly, it would swipe me and kill me. I can trust the bearness, that it'll do that. I can trust elements of life and say, hey, that's its nature. The nature of the bear is this, and I can trust that. The nature of a rose is that it has this beautiful flower, but it also has these thorns. I can trust that if I grab the stalk of the rose hard, I might get punctured and bleed a little bit from that stem of the rose. It has a form of protection for itself, and it has this innate beauty the roseness is one of thorns and beauty and delicacy and toughness. So if we look at life and discern the essence of what something is out there, we can say, I don't trust that. That's one way of expressing it, but I trust the bareness, and I trust myself, and not to go and pet the bear, not to poke the bear. And I think we can do that with people too, if we're really start to turn those other levels of senses on. We can get a feeling about people, and if we are aware of a psychopath, well, we want to be careful around the psychopath. We want to be careful around the narcissist. When we understand somebody's character, they may or may not change in the future. But if I know that this is the way they are, I'm going to be careful about developing trust, or lock that energy out of my world. Put the gates up, grow my thorns, so that doesn't work. If I don't trust certain news outlets, then I want to be very discerning when I'm listening to them, or Facebook or other social media. I want to be very discerning. Can I trust this particular message? Is it coming from someone that I trust? Can I trust that they have done their research? And even if they haven't, I will do my research before I send it on, because my integrity is important. Can I trust myself is the biggest thing. Can I trust myself to make the decisions in the moment, to open my heart or put up boundaries in effective ways? One thing I can trust, or we can trust, is that if I have not dealt with my wounds or my inner beliefs about love or about judgment, if I haven't dealt with healing and integrating the shadows, those patterns that show up in our lives about betrayal, whatever that may be, those triggers in life, you can bet and you can trust that if you have not effectively dealt with those beliefs and integrated those shadows, that they will continue to be mirrored back to you in life. You can trust life absolutely perfectly. If you've got a belief system, a shadow that has been triggering you, like looking in the mirror, you keeps on coming back again, then you can trust that it will continue to come back until you do the inner change, where it no longer has to reflect back to you. So this is my view of life, is that life will mirror back to us what we are inside, and we can trust that. It may not give us what we want, but it will give us what we need, because life tends to want us to bring us into our fullness, into our wholeness, into the light, and shine the light on us fully. And when we have the doors closed and the windows closed, and where we're shut in, life wants to break that shell and bring us out into our full light. And it will do that by reflecting back our darkness, our beliefs to us, so that eventually, hopefully, we get tired of the way life is showing up to us, the way we are in opposition to life, and we find a new strategy. We shift to another level of consciousness, which then shifts life. So we can trust that life will show us what we need, but not necessarily what we want. It will grow us, and we can trust that. I feel that that's part of life. So if we want to bring ourselves to a place where we can trust life, where we can trust other people in our life, where we can open our hearts, then the first step that we need to do is look at ourselves and change our own vibration so that we resonate with something different, healing the shadows that are in us, forgiving all of betrayals in the past that we're still holding on to. Because if we're holding on to betrayal of loved ones, chances are that energy of that hate or can't stand will have closed our heart, and will it continue to attract the similar energies based on our trauma versus what is possible when we heal those. So we have complete control over our vibration, but it's going to take some work. We cannot fix somebody else, especially if they're reflecting back our shadow, because they will reflect back our wound. Now, if we are standing in more of our light or in the fullness of our light, then they will show up different. They just won't vibrate with us. They won't show up in our world in that way. I don't find many people that I hate or can't stand that show up. And if I do, I go back inside and say, what is that about within me that life wants to show me through this particular person? I can get rid of them. I can shut them out of my life. But chances are life will bring me someone else to hold the mirror up for me. Life loves me that much. It wants me to be free. It wants me to be in the full expression of love. It wants you to be in the full expression of love. So anything that doesn't resonate with that, life has a way of showing that to us if we can just look at what life is doing in another way. So the first step in regaining trust in our world is regaining trust in ourselves by letting go, by forgiving, by surrendering to the process of life and learning how to trust life. And if we look back through and go through forgiveness and surrender, you'll find that you can completely trust life. Everything that I've experienced, as I go back and dip into every experience, those hurtful experiences, dip right into the trauma, I would say, wow, I would do this all over again. I would have this experience all over again if it would bring me to the joy that I feel now once I unravel the mystery of that event. Life can be completely trusted, and there's places yet that I have not gone with the trust of life, and I'm sure life will show me that. God will show me those places, and while I'm working through it, I'll say, hey, this philosophy of life doesn't work because I don't trust this moment. I'm sure there's those places yet in my future, but I'm committed to really dip in to those places that show up in an aggravation, in stuckness, in can't stands and hates and emotional triggers. I'm committed to prove once again that life has given me exactly what I need versus maybe what I wanted. And it's always been true to me. And I think if that's true for me, I can extrapolate that, and it's true for the world. So even this experience that we're going through at the collective of the wars, the censorship, and all of these things, this movement towards can't trust everything, is life, is consciousness doing its thing to bring us, maybe through pain and suffering, into the light. As we see ourselves in the extremes, maybe a lot of us will take responsibility for our light to heal what's inside of ourselves, and then to start moving out and showing up in the essence of who we are in the world, in this fantastic mosaic of wholeness, us being a part of the whole to serve the world. So the first step is working with self and our own vibration. The second step is, what can we do to reestablish connection and communication and forming circles of trust with others? There's some skills and some capacities that we need to learn, like listening skills. I wasn't taught how to listen very well. I wasn't really in places where I felt really heard or seen. So once I heal that within myself, practicing showing up in a different way in, say, trust circles where I can be all I can be and have those positive experiences in small communities where I can learn and practice respecting, trusting, letting go of my assumptions and my judgments of others, and really start to listen deeply and beyond the other person in terms of what they're saying, really listening to the fullness of other people and listening and hearing my inner voice and trusting the inner voice and being guided by that voice versus the stuff that's rolling around in my mind. So I invite you to look at forming circles that you can trust. Find those circles where you can have the experience, develop those positive experience of deep trust in others. And when we've done that with each other, and we can extend that, and that if we trust that person could be in another group, and they could come back and say, this is what happened over there, and it's likely you can trust that because you trust them. So we can extend our trust through our smaller trust circles. But we probably can't trust our politicians because we don't know them. What if we reformed democracy from the bottom up, where each person learned to trust themselves by surrendering, forgiving, letting go, surrendering and forgiving and coming into deep connection with each other, trusting, loving beings with each other, and then extending that upwards to our leaders. We can transfer that trust out there. And ultimately, can we become a pure, trustful being? If we let go of all those things, let go of anything that blocks us, can we trust consciousness, life itself, without ever feeling unsafe about anything? Just, oh, trust, this is what's happening. It must be right. Oh, somebody has a gun towards me. Maybe this is when I die. Something else happens. This maybe is what life wants for me. What would happen in that space of complete trust, fearlessness, because nothing is wrong. We can trust everything. What are the possibilities then? So I hope that jiggles something inside of you, gives you some sense of ownership. Maybe you're doing some of that already. If you want to do that inner work, and you sense that there's some places in your life where you're stuck or you can't stand something, there's these triggers, then I invite you to look at a discovery session with me, and maybe we can go forward and do some work together at the inner vibration place to help you unravel what it is that life is trying to show you. Or if you want to join a trusting group, a group that gets into deep connection and trust and caring, then I'm also have this project called Cohering Community, where we're working through forming those deep trust circles where we can create and co-create and build things together, maybe even build society from the bottom up, and reestablish trust in our world. I'll put some of those things in the show notes.